Okay. Should be
All
rolling.
right. Thank you, John. We will call this special board directors meeting to order at 6:06 p.m. This board has written and supports a land acknowledgement and anti-racism statement. Both of them are posted on the board's website. Roll call tonight. We have Josh is absent with an excused absence, and Keith is not with us. I've not heard from him, but he may show up here.
He also had plans, but he was trying to, because, and this is on me, but I said Tuesday at the end of the last meeting, and that's why it kind of confused everybody, but it was Wednesday, and Keith actually has plans out of town too, so he was trying to juggle them to see if he could get in.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, we'll keep moving ahead then. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. That's good. Do we have any announcements? Kim?
Yes, just a reminder to the community that the Finance Committee is seeking applications for committee members, and you can email us at financecommittee@suddenvalley.com if interested by January 12th. And those meetings are the third Wednesday of every month, beginning at 6:30 p.m.
Oh, I guess we have another announcement, or unless you were going to say it, AJ. I'm sorry. Can I jump in? So the clubhouse is closed starting tomorrow through December 27th due to the water remediation tear out portion. So it will not be open, and our staff will be all working remotely. So all the admin staff and the accounting staff will be working remotely, so everything should be seamless to the members, unless, but just know you can't walk in there and do anything. You'll need to contact them via phone or email.
Any other announcements? All right. Hearing none, we will move to property owner comments.
Yeah, two sections of property owner comments tonight. First one right now. So we've got 3 attendees with us. If anybody wants to jump in, just use raise hand in Zoom and I'll bring you over. And that should be down at the bottom of the screen on PC and Mac. And if you're on a mobile device, just tap the screen. You should see the menu button and it'll be in there.
All right. Looks like none. I'll have another opportunity at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you, John. We will move on to new business then. First thing on the agenda is the debrief report from the November flooding events that happened. So I'm actually going to share my screen here. All right, can everyone see that? Is it large enough?
Looks good.
All right. So I'm not going to read it verbatim, but I think I would imagine almost everyone is aware that we had a historic flooding event for our entire region, both British Columbia, Whatcom County, and Skagit County, and I think parts of Snohomish County as well, but mostly the three regions here to the north. As a public works employee for Whatcom County, I am part of a first response team that monitors the flood rivers. So I've seen firsthand along the Nooksack River and Everson and Ferndale and Linden the damage that was done, and it was pretty bad in my 7 years of doing that stuff and that work out in the floodplains. This was definitely the worst I have ever seen it. There's a lot of people who were displaced from their home, and a number of people who unfortunately passed away as well, getting caught in floodwaters, and lots of damage to people's personal property, as well as local jurisdictions, roads, drainage systems, levee system, and all that stuff. This report is kind of a work in progress. Things are still being compiled, information still being gathered, engineers still doing work to assess some of the damages that we have. But I believe we've captured everything in here, all the major issues that arose as a result of the flood event. Some of them, are for some of the issues have been addressed quicker than others, and that's just due to the nature of the issues themselves. So I'll kind of run through some of the issues that we experienced. Basically, from an operational side of the association, there's a number of things that occurred, and then as a result of some of this stuff and just other and other things, we identified a number of projects that needed to be dealt with, resulting from damage to our infrastructure. So kind of the first big thing, and I think most people notice this, the association's communication equipment, both the phone server and part of our network, failed completely. The phone system failed association-wide everywhere. I think John reported there's about 72 hours where we were unable to receive any phone calls or anything like that. And then we had network failure in a number of our buildings. And I believe the website also had John doesn't believe it was related to the flooding, but there was also an issue that happened with that during the event, where it just brought up one of those 404 errors. And John worked with our service providers to try to get those systems back up and functional as quickly as he could. And I believe now we have everything operating the way that it was before the event. There's basically two major creek corridors that run through Sudden Valley. You have Beaver Creek and Austin Creek. Beaver Creek kind of runs from the lookout area through gate 13-9 and then meets up with Austin Creek. Austin Creek comes from the lookout area, runs through gate 5 down and goes all the way out to Lake Whatcom through the golf course and everything like that. So we did experience flooding in both creek corridors, which would be expected when we have record rainfall totals that we saw. The Beaver Creek, these that were impacted from Beaver Creek overtopping its banks. You can see in some of these pictures, all of the sediment that was deposited. This is the waters were up, at these levels, and that's what left all the sediment. The home over here actually, I don't believe got hit too hard because the creek bends around it, but the home that's just to the left over here did have water coming right up to it. I talked with the property owners, their back stairs ended in the creek because the creek cut the channel right up to their back stairs where they used to have a nice kind of backyard area. And you can see here, it's hard to see. I don't think you can actually see it, but this cut bank is just downstream right over here. So this cut bank is about 20 to 30 feet tall. And it the creek scoured it out and washed a bunch of material out. And this is the bridge on Polo Park near Gate 9. In the creek here, you can see more sediment where the creek, kind of got up onto private property, overtopped its banks, deposited stuff. We did inspect all of the culverts that run along Polo Park Drive and where Beaver Creek runs through the neighborhood there. And basically all the culverts held up really well, except for one of the first ones in Gate 13. And we'll get into more of that later, but basically that culvert, the roadway embankment and subgrade failed from the high flow event. The culvert itself wasn't damaged, and the fill kind of around on the sides of the culvert appears to be fairly well intact, but it's basically everything on top of the culvert up to the road, up to the bottom of the pavement, basically failed. And yeah, there's a project later in here that'll elaborate more on that. So the Austin Creek corridor had a lot of water running through it. We saw these are some pictures from the golf course. We had silt and sediment deposits on the fairways, just similar to those private property homes. Creek bank erosion, and then one of the golf course's bridges actually failed due to channel erosion around the abutments of the bridge. We saw yeah, and that's basically what happened there. Austin Creek also runs past our rec corridor, which is on the other side of the creek from the golf course. And some of the issues that we saw with Austin Creek were it overtopped its banks right near Barn 8. It got into the playground. It actually got up higher than what this picture shows. It got the creek overtopped in the area of the adult center and the quiet pool. You can see all the sediment left behind. I believe this is about a foot of sediment that got left behind here by the quiet pool storage. The ramp into the storage got broken off and will need to be fixed by maintenance and our park staff, and just, more sediment inside the buildings. The quiet pool pump got some sediment in it, and it sounds like that's going to have to get replaced here this winter before we bring the pool back up to being operational for the summer. We also had stormwater runoff that entered Barn 8. It was not river or creek overtopping water that got into Barn 8, but actually stormwater runoff off the top of the hill above the barn, basically where the covered walkway is into the upper floor. There are three pipes that discharge onto that slope and just send water basically right at the barn. And there's one catch basin down there, but they're not tied into that catch basin at all. And there's no trench drain along the edge of that barn to capture water. And the road, or it's not really a road, but the access that's underneath that covered walkway and adjacent to the barn is actually higher and basically sloped at the barn. And so that's an issue that also helped exasperate water getting into the barn. We had some of our staff were laying sandbags at building entry points, trying to keep water from coming in, and the doors. There's a number of doors on that. It'd be I think it's like the eastern wall. And they also dug some small trenches just to try to direct some of the water to the catch basin. However, because the creek was actually overtopping, like you see here, the catch basin probably had nowhere to really go at that point to get rid of the water. And so, yeah, those are some of the operational issues we saw in our rec corridor. out in Gate 5 along Austin Creek, right next to the bridge on Tumbling Water Drive. Prior to the flooding, we had a dead tree come down, which you can see right here in this picture. And this is actually from the top of that up here. You can see this exposed soils from a tree coming down, and this tree also came down. There's actually a number of other dead trees right in this vicinity that are 100 to 200 feet tall. And we had geotest out to assess the slope, and they believed that there was not a high likelihood of a big slide or anything happening, but the exposed soil and the heavy rains was not good, and the dead trees and the whole slope was basically getting soggy. We've seen across the county everywhere, lots of trees come down due to oversaturated soil and just weak root systems. And so they recommended the removal of, I think we removed 4 or 5 trees in addition to the 2 that came down themselves before the event, after the event happened. And Geotest's recommendation was removing those and being able to leave the stumps in place and have those root systems in place would alleviate a lot of concerns with any additional movement of soil, and would reduce if those trees fell on themselves, it would just expose more soil, like you can see right here above this rock. This rock's always exposed. It's just this pocket of soil. There's actually a pocket of soil that's hard to see in the picture right below the rock too, where another tree came down. Basically one above, one below came down before the event, and then we had to take down a few others after. And those are some of the main issues, kind of that came up operationally. And a number of projects have kind of been created as a result of some of the damages that were done from the storm. And so I'll kind of go into some of those here. So for the Beaver Creek, the culvert that I was talking about where the road embankment and subgrade failed, that is located just inside Gate 13. This is Western Lane right here, and Polo Park Loop, and then just between Lost Lake Lane and Sunnyside Lane, this culvert number 4 failed. Actually, the culvert didn't fail. The road embankment and subgrade failed around the culvert. And currently the road's closed at that spot. You can see in the pictures right here, it's clearly not traversable for vehicles at this point, and we have barricades up at this point to keep vehicles from going that way. But you can see that the culvert is still fairly well intact, and a lot of the riprap around the culvert is still intact. It's just basically the road subgrade was, made with less than ideal material. It looks like a lot of pit run type material, which is heavy on the fines, and just not a great base for your road. And so basically, what we need to do here and working with PNW and sub-consultants with PNW, as far as civil engineers go, we're gonna have to cut out the pavement, remove those sections of pavement, dig down to where the subgrade is still intact and compacted well, and just basically build the roadway back up around the culvert itself, and then repave. There's obviously, you can see exposed utilities in the pictures. You can see a pipe right here. On the other side, there's also exposed utilities there. So that'll all have to be carefully done. They'll have to make sure they support those utilities when they rebuild the road subgrade back up. And PNW and the consultants inspected the culvert. I took a look at the culvert myself. Our maintenance crew was out there looking at it, and the culvert itself, it does not appear to have suffered any significant damages. PNW has begun coordinating with Department of Fish and Wildlife on permitting. Beaver Creek's obviously a fish-bearing stream. So if any in-water work were to happen, we would likely be looking at having to provide fish passage on the project. But since the culvert itself has not failed and it's just the road subgrade, basically they have agreed to that it's not an emergency permit, but they will do an expedited permit review, which we believe will take about 2 weeks or so to get done. Once we file for it, and basically they'll allow us to rebuild that road back up around the culvert. Basically, since we're able to stay out of the water, we should not trigger any fish passage requirements with this stuff. A lot of times what happens is they'll let you put the culvert back together so you can get the road put back together, but then they'll give you a deadline of 2 or 3 years to replace that culvert with something that's fish passageable. I don't even know if that's a word. And that could either be a bridge, or these are I believe this is about a 6-foot culvert. You can see basically for fish passage, the rule of thumb, and this is real general, it's obviously needs to be looked at closer, but it's usually about 1.25 times what the full, like if the banks were just about to overtop whatever the width of the creek is at that stage, it has to be that much bigger than that. So these are 6-foot culverts. You'd probably be looking at, a significantly larger culvert if we had to do fish passage. Basically, we, obviously this is Polo Park's a fairly main loop in the Gate 13, Gate 9 area. So we are trying to work to allow or get it repaired and get it back open so that we have faster access for EMS services and just more direct access for property owners who live near the vicinity of the culvert. Luckily, Lost Lake Lane is not too big of a detour around the culvert, so it's not some huge issue to get around it at the moment. All these projects, we're working with the engineers to put together, the information we need to try to, secure some funds from FEMA. And the counties had lots of social media posts and different press releases and stuff that they've put out to to collect data from private property owners, whether it's homeowners or businesses, and they mostly focus on homeowners first, and then now they're starting to pivot towards the local jurisdictions and businesses that were impacted. So we're coordinating with the county to try to put together our package for all of this stuff to try to get any reimbursement wherever possible. There's some project funding here. Basically, in doing kind of a preliminary analysis of getting engineers out here to look at things, do a site visit, evaluate things, put together a initial cost estimate of what potentially we could be looking at. We've obviously have to pay people to do that. P&W is our contracted project manager. His hourly rate is right there. And we got an estimate as a sub-consultant to P&W. They brought an impact design to evaluate the culvert, and you can see those fees there. And then in addition to that, we have P&W kind of managing the project, the design, and the sub-consultant and impact will have to put together the preliminary engineering design. We obviously will have permit fees. And then you can see the engineer's estimate to do the work to fix the road subgrade and repave that area is right here. And then P&W would manage the construction of that, and this is their estimate. So if anyone has any questions on specific projects, you can feel free to ask as we go through, if you don't want to wait until the very end. This is just a second map that kind of gives you, it's a bigger blown up version of the project location map to better orient yourself. So the golf course bridge that failed is right north of the community garden and the adult center and library. You can see in the pictures here that it basically the creek washed away around these concrete pillars, essentially, that the bridge is sitting on, or the abutments, and the creek bed or the creek slope channel washed away around those. And then you can see this one actually settled down into the creek, and it basically just broke the bridge. The bridge is still sitting on the abutments, which is impressive, but it will need to be replaced. Currently, the golf course is only operating 9 holes as a result of this, as this is a main way for golf carts to get across to.
Well, they're operating 18, but they're not all like 9 are walkable, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
you said, yeah.
Oh yeah, good point. I didn't think of that. So basically, the bridge is going to need to be replaced. We are still evaluating those options of what we're looking at as far as replacing the bridge. PNW has begun coordinating with Fish and Wildlife on this project as well. They've again verbally agreed to allow expedited work to occur to replace the bridge. Basically, this stream bank is going to need to be temporarily armored. We have a number of boulders on hand in Sudden Valley from the landslide that happened in Gate 28. If you drive up there, there's basically just boulders lining the side of the road. And so we have a number of those on site that we'll be able to bring down to use as armoring. But the one issue with that is that Fish and Wildlife, that's not, they don't really like you to just dump a bunch of rock in the creek. And so in order to, they're going to basically require mitigation as a result of doing this project, because we will have in-water work that's required. And so those boulders will eventually have to be removed, and we'll have to do mitigation to stabilize the channel, basically. And that's going to be cutting the channel back, properly sloping it, planting it with native plants, likely looking at some large woody debris installation around the bridge to help with flows. And that's, as we get into this project further, we'll get more clarity on what those requirements will actually be. We're still working with the engineers to get conceptual cost estimates of the damage. Once basically a bridge concept has been decided on, then we'll have to officially go to Fish and Wildlife to get that permitted. And then at that point, we'll have a clear picture of what the mitigation would involve for the project. So at this point, we don't really have much, information beyond kind of the preliminary analysis of this project and this site, as they're still kind of working through the details. The bridge is a little more complex than just kind of repairing road subgrade around the culvert. And then adjacent to Harborview and Maple Court, we had a road shoulder fail. And you can see in here the pictures of that shoulder failure. This is from the side and this is from above, and basically the shoulder just slid down. And this is the picture of the repair. This work has already been completed. The work was, it needed to be completed as quickly as possible. Otherwise, we run the risk of the shoulder failing even more, which would have undermined the road, and we could have been looking at a much more significant project than if we got out there quickly and repaired it. Basically, you know, P&W is basically believes that, you know, shoulder debris build up on the road from years of sanding and all the leaf litter and evergreen litter that falls on our roads that gets pushed off to the side of the road by cars and sweeping and everything like that, cause basically water to run down the road along the shoulder. And it just basically hit this area where it went over the edge, where it found a spot to go over the edge, and it washed things out as a result. Basically, we just had to rebuild the shoulder, you know, putting gravel back in, putting in large, I think we had some large rock that went down in the base there, and then armoring it with what's called quarry spall, which is all these like 4 to 8 inch rocks here. And basically, you know, the executives approved P&W to go out and they got an estimate from Stremler Gravel to do an emergency repair for us. The contractors are all really busy amidst all this because WashDOT, Whatcom County, City of Bellingham, Everson, Ferndale, Linden, all those local jurisdictions were also hiring contractors to do emergency repairs to try to not allow roads to degrade any further than they already have. We basically were able, you know, it was a pretty minor fix. We went forward with a time and materials contract, or it's also called a force account contract. Basically, instead of them bidding on quantities of stuff designed by an engineer, we basically just Tyler directed the repair, and we paid for the equipment time, the labor time, and the materials that were used. Stremler gave us an estimate to do the work of about 4,500, just under. I believe it actually came in closer to 3,000 something at this point. Still working on compiling all of that information and hope to have more of that information at the January board meeting. And yeah, basically a pretty simple shoulder repair. Yeah, Sam, you got a question?
Yes, a couple of them. But one I just wanted to, it's not really a question. I was looking at that, the washout, and when I went over there and crawled down on the far side, the uphill side of that culvert going under the road was blocked completely. And I'd cleared a bunch of stuff after the rain because it was blocked. So that was forcing water up and over from the uphill side, and because the culvert had been blocked so radically. So we also had that. There was a washover. So there was extra stuff down in there that it wasn't a good clear spot. It had been sanded over for a while. And anyway, so there was that. It's like, so on the uphill side, on the other side of the road, there was blockage severely. Right after that event, I crawled in there, and I didn't take a shovel because I just went down to take a look, but I whatever I grabbed in my hands, I pulled a bunch of debris out of there. So it was washing up over there also, instead of going through the culvert pipe under the road. The golf course, would there be any more or less dredging going on there? Because with all that added silt filling up that creek, would that also take place in various spots? Because there's a lot of stuff filled in there. So I was just curious about that.
I doubt we would do any dredging. There'd obviously be excavation involved with putting in a new bridge, which would, you know, also further disturb the creek channel, but then it'll all get rebuilt back around it. You know, typically you're not getting into like dredging of creeks. Fish and Wildlife doesn't really like those types of things. I do know dredging's been a big topic out on the Nooksack River And a lot of people have brought that up as like, if we had dredged the river, potentially there'd be more capacity, to hold more water or whatever. But the reality is it's likely not the case. I mean, like sediment's kind of constantly moving through all of these like major creek channels or river channels. The Nooksack in particular, because the volcanoes are constantly shedding material off of them down into the river system, which we don't really have that here. But I don't really see dredging as something that we would be doing. I will say though that I wouldn't be surprised if there was some water overtopping the roadway. Typically what you do see, and this is what happened on the Polo Park culvert as well, the culvert can't handle the amount of flows that are going through it during this 100+ year event that we had. And a lot of times you don't actually see erosion on the upstream side. It's on the downhill side once it cascades off the roadway down the bank. That's exactly what happened on the Polo Park culvert. The water came up, it likely was going over the road, it starts coming down the other side, it starts to undermine as it churns, and then it just rips everything apart, kind of moving backwards then as it does that. And that's what happened to the Polo Park culvert. It's probably what happened here as well. I know for the county, I had to do a bunch of repairs on Northwest Drive where it was the same thing. The upstream side of the culvert is, looks like nothing happened. And then the downstream side, you got 7 feet of undercut road that you're, cutting apart and patching it all back up together. So Southern Court, there's multiple issues up in gate 28, but the first one is right just below Louise View Drive a little ways. There is a crib block wall on the outside of the road embankment that kind of helps hold the road embankment in place, and it failed. You can actually see here a crack in the crib block wall. I had other pictures, but you really can't tell through this mess of vegetation, but there's big pockets of fine materials missing, and like a bunch of the material. These crib block walls are actually they're like little Lego blocks that you stack together, and it's an open face wall. So it's not closed. Like if you built a wall out of ecology blocks or something, it's open. There's voids in it. They typically do not shed material through the voids this way, but that appears to be kind of what happened. And it could have also just been settlement from, and I got more pictures in the Louise View Drive area from the creek down here. Basically, the entire creek bed washed away. And a number of material, or a bunch of material and trees and everything moved. And so there was probably some settlement as a result of that maybe shifted this wall a bit, and then it caused some of the material to just become loose and fall out of there. But you can see the failure in this crib block wall originally resulted in this. And then a week later, it looked like that. So it progressively was moving over the course of a couple weeks. There is a little bit of a shelf. Oh, here's all the boulders you can see that are along Southern Court that we talked about with the golf course bridge that can be utilized. And basically over the course of a couple of weeks, it continued to settle. Geotest has been out there monitoring this settlement on a fairly regular basis, and they don't believe that there is much risk of much additional settlement. There's kind of a shelf just below these rocks a bit before you get down in the creek bed, and so basically, this roadway is going to have to be either we're going to have to replace the crib walk wall with another crib block wall or different type of retaining wall, or come back in and use like boulders like this size and slightly smaller ones which usually are referred to as riprap, to build up the embankment again. So, we'll kind of work with the geotechnical engineers to determine what the best solution is for replacing that crib block wall, and what's going to be the most cost effective and be likely to continue to function well into the future. But Kim, what's up?
Are you using the term riff-raff or riff-wrapped?
Rip wrap is
Rip
basically, so there's like, it's just a term for rock, basically.
Okay.
So gravel's like your small rock, right? And most people know what gravel is. There's a few different types of gravel bases you can use that get from like real fine gravel up to like slightly chunkier gravel, but all stuff that would like fit in, in like the center of the palm of your hand, basically. Like base course is like the largest type of gravel. It's called crushed surfacing base course, and it has a maximum size of about 1.5 inches or so. And then you get into what we put on hard.
RIP, rip-rap.
Yep. And then you get into quarry spalls, which is above gravel, basically. And those come in typically two sizes. You either have 2 to 4 inch spalls or 4 to 8 inch spalls. And then above that, you get into light, loose riprap and heavy, loose riprap. And those get into slightly bigger. Light, loose riprap is about 6 to 12 or maybe a little bit larger than that. And then heavy riprap's usually basically kind of like a one-man boulder size.
Like the ones on Southern Court.
No, those are probably closer to like 6-man boulders or 4-man boulders. They use like this nomenclature of like how many men it would take, or women it would take to lift the boulder without.
It needs to be people boulder.
Yeah. Basically, it's how many people it would take to lift that boulder without any mechanical advantage of a machine or anything. So these are probably like 4 or 6-man boulders. Your riprap is like one person could probably pick it up and set it in place. Right. Obviously, that's not efficient, and we use excavators to do that work for us, or a dump truck to dump it in place if that's feasible.
Well, thank you. That explains it. I thought you were saying riff-raff.
I try to not get into too much technical stuff, but my engineering brain takes over at times.
All right, thank you.
But you can see the settlement that's occurred here, and it continues to settle. Well, the road has now narrowed out by about a foot or more, foot and a half at its worst, and basically it is not passable to EMS services, which is a problem for the residents that live up in Southern Court. You can get a personal vehicle through there. This picture kind of best shows how much the road's narrowed up. So this is basically a 2-phase project at this point. We're expediting a project, which is currently underway this week, to widen the shoulder on this uphill side, on the north side of the road, past this. And basically, I think I have it up here, about 3 feet of widening over the course of 120 feet to allow emergency services to get up there. Luis View Drive emergency services don't go on Luis View Drive, period, is my understanding. And that road has also got issues, which I'll get into in a little bit here with a different project. But we did, this work is underway currently. The executives approved Tyler to move forward with, again, another time and materials type contract with Stremler. We did get 2 estimates for this work, as it happened a little bit after the storm, and some of the contractors have started to gain free time again. Stremler is quite a bit cheaper than WRS for performing the work. There is a buried power line on that north shoulder. We're going to be widening and doing some ditch reestablishing to remove sediment buildup in there. So Tyler did recommend a bit of a contingency in case that power line became an issue, because we did not know what depth that power line is at. And so if we encountered that line as they started digging and it wasn't as deep as it should have been, then, you know, we'd have to obviously use extra care around that line. But they're currently working on that this week. It is expected to be, this temporary shoulder widening is expected to be completed this week to allow emergency services to get up there, to allow access for the Southern Court residents to continue. We did remove the debris and the barricade at Louise View Drive for the residents up there to be able to get out during the construction with Stremler, and if EMS services were needed, Stremler was prepared to get their equipment out of the way as quickly as possible so that EMS could potentially attempt to get up the roadway from Southern Court instead of Louise View Drive. There's still engineering and construction that will need to be done related to the crib walk wall. So the geotechnical engineers are going to continue to monitor the settlement there. And then they'll provide a recommendation for what they believe will be the best repair to that crib block wall, whether it's a new crib block wall, a different type of retaining wall, or some other buildup of the embankment with boulders and gravel. Yeah, that'll all be continuing to move forward. And hopefully we'll know more in the next few weeks on that. And then once we replace that curb block wall, it'll allow us to rebuild that road, you know, in its normal location. And the geotechnical engineers at this point don't believe there'll be any issues with that as long as we, you know, rebuild the wall properly. Sam?
How interested has the county been since Lake Whatcom Boulevard is down at the bottom of that? Are they helpful? Are they concerned about any of our work? Are they going to have requirements?
I don't know that the county's paying much attention at this point. They got their own projects that they're having to deal with. Obviously, their maintenance crews were out repairing Lake Whatcom Boulevard, you know, shortly after the issues that occurred on that road as a result of all of this creek bed material basically ending up down at that culvert. Or you'll see in some of the other projects up next, in some of our culverts upstream of this curb block wall. You know, I had, you know, we'll have to send an email to, you know, Whatcom County has a couple of geologists in their planning department and in public works as well, and just see, you know, what their thoughts are. Basically, you know, at this point, the entire creek is basically running on bedrock at this point because the creek bed itself just washed away, which I have not ever seen happen before. And it actually rerouted itself after it plugged up two of our culverts at the intersection of Southern Court and Louise View Drive. This temporary work does not require any permitting with the county. It is under the 500 square foot threshold. You know, and Tyler, you know, we kind of intentionally, you know, kept it that way so that we could avoid and get this back functional so that those residents in Southern Court have access to their property and have, you know, proper ability for fire and medical to be able to reach their homes in case of an emergency. When we do the crib block wall or whatever type of wall gets built there, you know, if it's over 4 feet, it'll need a structural engineer to design it. There'll need to be a building permit to build it, and the county will get more involved at that point. There's still work that needs to be done related to the landslide that happened on Gate 28 in 2020, that we did the rock bolting and stuff on this last summer. That all held up really well. Nothing moved on that, which is great. It's good to see the work that got done is doing what it was made to do. But there is barrier that still will need to be installed on that north side of the road. And Gate 28 needs an overlay and pavement rehabilitation as well, through the entire stretch of the road, likely, because it's got a lot of delamination and potholing issues already, in addition to now this giant settlement. So the estimate for Stremler to do the temporary road widening was about 12 grand. And they'll be finishing that up this week, and then we'll be continuing to look into what we need to do to fix the settlement issues and repair the road embankment. Sonia, I saw your hand.
Hey, I was just going to expand on what you were saying about Whatcom County, because they have actually been out, and right now, like AJ was saying, they're kind of focusing on the residences, but Tyler is talking with them. In addition to that, he's been meeting with Fish and Wildlife and also Lake Whatcom Water and Sewer, because on Southern Court, one of their main lines runs down there. So this also impacts them. So there's a lot of potential partnerships for the association to help offset some of these expenses, because like you say, it's going to impact Whatcom County down at the bottom. It'll impact Lake Whatcom Water and Sewer kind of at the top and all down through the center, and so, and then there's also, at this point, we don't know, how much of that, FEMA money or these other monies that are grant monies that'll start to be available too. But what we're doing is trying to put these packages together so that we're ready. And Tyler's doing an awesome job of starting to identify who these partners are that we could potentially work with, on some of this to offset the expenses.
Yeah, and you can see, so this is, getting to the next projects on Southern Court. This you can see, so this is your creek bed material here. And this stuff is it used to be like 3 feet higher. And you can see, it didn't just slide down and then this is just here. All this rock was never exposed. There's vegetation, on the banks here. You can see here, it's just gone. All the creek bed's gone. The creek is literally just flowing on the bedrock. Here's a huge pocket of creek bed material that got deposited just above Southern Court on Luis View Drive. I believe this is where the creek rerouted itself. So this is hard to see on this map, and I don't have a bunch of great maps, but Southern Court comes up here along this black line, and then it goes into Southern Court there, and then this is where Luis View Drive comes in, and there's 2 culverts. There's one that right here, there is a culvert just right where this kind of pile of debris is, just upstream of it, that goes under Luis View Drive, and then there's a second culvert, which is this one right here. You can see the top of it exposed. That's coming under Southern Court. So the creek actually used to come down along Luis View Drive, cross under Luis View Drive, do kind of a hard 90, and then go back under Southern Court, and then run down adjacent to Southern Court where these issues happen. So this whole creek channel below these trees and stuff is, all this is happening just upstream of that. And so, sorry, I'm kind of jumping around a lot, but basically this is the inlet to a culvert. You can see there's no culvert there anymore. I mean, there's a culvert there, but it's completely buried. And that's basically, this is the one that goes under Southern Court. So this is the outlet of that culvert right there, which you can see all the material there plugged, that got deposited. But basically, I hiked up this creek channel. It kind of, you can see in this photo, it starts to veer away from Louisview Drive. And I hiked probably quarter mile to half mile up the channel, and it all just looked like this or like that. There are areas with small pockets like this, but basically all that material is loose now. None of it's like held together cohesively in like a solid creek bed matrix. So, heavier rain events, we could see more of this material continue to just flush its way down this creek channel. So there's, some serious considerations that need to be made in relation to these culverts. This kind of double culvert system right here where it goes under Louisview and then under Southern Court and then runs down. Both of those are plugged. Both of them in the channel, the creek's basically rerouted itself around culvert 5 and 6, just adjacent to the road instead of going under it. And that's what you see right here. Here's the road right above this big log in this pile. And this is the new channel the creek basically cut adjacent to the road, which, exposed utilities. There's like actual cables exposed here. The conduit got ripped apart. I believe this is, I think this might be their sewer line there. And, basically, more engineering is needed to determine what are our solutions here? What is the best solutions? Some of the initial things that have been kind of thrown around by Tyler and the civil engineers is, replacing those failed culverts, plugging up that new channel that the creek formed, and putting everything back to the original flow path. Or we can call those culverts a wash at this point, plug them up, and build a new ditch that handles the flow adequately, because you see this is barely looks like a ditch, and certainly doesn't look like, this type of creek channel that you got here. It's not, any larger significant event moving forward is going to cause further issues to the roadway itself and likely overtop the ditch onto the road itself. So if we move forward with saying this is the new flow path, abandoning the double culverts, we'll have to establish that ditch with a proper capacity to handle the flows that would come off the hillside. Obviously repairing the road shoulder, dealing with exposed utilities, getting them, rebedded and put back together. But this is another challenge with establishing, this picture is just upstream of this, so it's just up. You can see that those utilities are running right where we would basically build the ditch. And you can't see it in this picture, but right there's a pedestal. I believe it's a communications pedestal. I believe this is all, I think it might be Comcast, and then you got your sewer, I believe. And then the other option, the engineers are going to evaluate both of those options, give us some cost estimates for what that would look like, and what the permitting ramifications would be for each of those things. And then a third option would be to permanently close Louisview Drive at Southern Court to traffic, which would then, restrict one of the access points for gate 5. And those residents who live down on Southern Court here, basically, they would be the only ones accessing up this roadway essentially, and this would get decommissioned. So, there's going to have to be a lot more conversation about that. We need more information to know what the costs are related to these. We need more information on what the ramifications would be of permanently closing Louisview Drive. But those are kind of the three solutions that have been outlined at this point. And so Impact Design is going to do some alternatives analysis type report for us to kind of outline what the projects, what each of those first two options would entail, what those costs would look like. And that should help us make, a more informed decision on how we deal with that roadway. But basically this, there's a lot to deal with here. I don't know if, how much Whatcom County is gonna care if the creek bed washed away. I'm not sure there's really anything you can do about it. Like send equipment up the channel to rebuild a creek bed. That's pretty expensive and unfeasible. So, I think to some extent it just is what it is. The biggest thing I think Whatcom County would care about is all this material, all of this, woody debris material. Eventually, if it's not, this woody debris material probably needs to get pulled out of there and taken out in dump trucks, or it'll eventually probably find its way down to Lake Whatcom Boulevard again. And some of this stuff upstream of the Louisview Drive culvert failures will just eventually continue to find its way down the channel to Lake Whatcom Boulevard as well. So, it's hopeful as Whatcom County kind of settles down on, a lot of their emergency projects that maybe they would have some guidance as well on what would be, an appropriate path forward. But there'll be more to come on that project, and that's it's a fairly more complex project than some of the other ones. And then, as I outlined in some of the operational issues, we had water enter barn 8 from the uphill side here. You got that road that brings you up to the covered entrance. Right there, and then wraps around. Basically, there's a number of drains coming off that roadway into this gravel access area underneath that roadway. And we worked with Tyler and with Stremler being out on site to do the temporary widening on Southern Court. It was also, this project was a very simple solution to help alleviate some of that. There's still other design issues we may want to consider doing in the summertime that Tyler started to outline to us. That all, this report's, I got draft stamped on it because I'm going to continually kind of keep updating it for you guys as we move forward through these projects and these processes. But there'll be more information at the next meeting, probably related to that. Holidays may get in the way of that to some extent, we'll see. But basically, this was minor amounts of earthwork as well. But basically, those 3 pipes at daylight on that slope, taking them, extending them, connecting them all together, and then tying them into the existing catch basin that is down below that covered walkway adjacent to the barn. So that it's not overland flowing wherever haphazardly, and it's being tied into the drainage system. And then also from the southeast corner of that barn, doing a trench drain as well along the side of the barn to get, and connecting into that catch basin as well. All of that will protect the barn from more water getting into it, hopefully. You never know with some of these, incredibly large events, but the likelihood that we have, a 100+ year event again anytime soon is hopefully not anytime soon. Basically, Stremler provided another time and materials estimate for $4,000, and the executives approved P&W managing them to do that. And they're going to be completing that work this week as well while they're out doing the temporary shoulder widening. And basically, you can see some of the water that got into the barn. It came into the fitness center. Here's, sandbags that tried to keep the water out, but it was just not successful. It came into there. Water came into the game room here and got the carpet wet. So we'll have to be looking at replacement of, these gym mats all got pulled up and they had adhesive on them. They're going to need to be replaced, and we're looking at options for that, as well as this carpet will need to be pulled up, but it was actually glued to the floor, apparently. And so we'll have to deal with that, and maybe look at some options, some waterproof options or something along those lines, like a epoxy coated concrete floor, or you could float the floor and put in some sort of like luxury vinyl plank that's waterproof, or other types of waterproof flooring, just in case something like this happens. We did have some sheetrock, obviously got damp with an inch of water coming in. That sheetrock absorbs it and it travels up. And so some of the sheetrock in the back areas and stuff is going to need to be replaced, and some of the baseboards and things like that might need to be addressed as well. And so
AJ,
basically,
question on
yeah.
the gym. Did any of the equipment get damaged, or was it just more the structural?
Just the flooring. As far as I know, Michelle and the rec staff did not report any damaged equipment. I don't believe.
Okay, and who glues carpet to the floor?
I don't know. Apparently Sudden Valley, and back in the day. I don't know how old that carpet is,
That's
but
what I
it's
was
a
gonna
pretty
say, it's
ugly
pretty
green
old.
color. So I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it's pretty old.
I don't know that was ever, I just always thought that staple guns was the process for.
It's a cement floor underneath there is what
Yeah.
it is. And
There's no
so,
subfloor.
yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
So we'll work with Tyler, and we may, have to bring in, like a flooring person, or, or someone to help us determine what the appropriate, and most cost-effective material to replace that would be. It could be that you do, epoxy coated concrete, or, or yeah, some other type of plank, or, obviously whatever it is, it should be waterproof essentially. And some of the other, I don't think I have this in here, as we kind of, we've been getting more and more information kind of, each day or every few days. But basically, Tyler's also suggested potentially this summer looking at the catch basin that we're doing all this work and tying it into, replacing the pipe that moves further to the north towards barn 6. There's an additional catch basin that this catch basin is tied to, and it's only got like a I can't remember if he said 4 or 6 inch pipe, so it's not really probably adequately sized to carry these additional pipes that are going to be tied into it, or anything like that. But that's a bit more substantial trench that needs to get dug, and would trigger, we wouldn't be able to do that work right now. And, we've heard from staff that this is not the first time that the barn has seen water in it. And, basically this does happen on a somewhat, it doesn't even have to be this monsoon event that we had here. It's happened in smaller events and stuff. Upgrading that line to like a 12 inch would help a lot with that. And yeah, I think that's pretty much the extent of the report at this moment. I just wanted to give everyone a quick outline of some of the stuff, that's happened, some of the stuff we've had to move on, fairly quickly because of the emergency nature of it. And then we'll have, significantly more information, and I'll add more. We'll get the engineering reports and things that we've gotten on these projects included in the report in January, with some of the cost estimates and things like that. We'll probably be looking at approving a bid for the Polo Park culvert in January as well, so we can do that work once Tyler secures some bids for it, and everything like that. So yeah, I feel like that was a mouthful, but hopefully everyone didn't fall asleep.
And you said quick report. It was not a quick report, AJ.
I think it was awesome. And, I hope that we can kind of clip just this report and put it up on the website, because I think it was really informative. So
Yeah, thank you for the detail and the thoroughness.
That was
Well,
great
it's
to
a
have
work
all
in-
of that.
It's a work in progress. Still, there'll be more to come with it, but yeah, we can maybe create some sort of button on the homepage to kind of track the iterations of it or something along those lines. That way I don't want, because there'll be more versions of it coming as we kind of move forward through some of these projects. All right. Are there any other questions on that? Otherwise, I am moving on to the next agenda item. I may pass it over to Mr. Heverling to introduce that and stop me from talking for a hot minute. You there, Joel?
Yeah, forgot I shut my video off. My topic, or this will go really quick. I'm just it's just a request for a lien fee increase, the amount that we charge the members for it, and it's solely just related to the increase that the county is charging us for lien fees. Now, what's listed on the fines and fee schedule right now is a lien fee amount of $275, which includes, it used to be so what we have to do is we pay a fee to record with the county the initial lien. And then when the lien is cleared, then we pay the same fee again to have the lien removed from the county. We're recording that we're taking away the lien. So the county used to charge $103.50. So times by 2, that's 207. And then plus we also had a $68 element to that fee that basically covered our administration expenses for that. And so now that the county, as of July 25th, 2021, so it looks like it's mirroring pretty close to the governor's proclamation that was eliminated on July 24th. So as of July 25th, the county increased their lien fee or recording costs, I should say, from $103.50 to $203.50. So that means $203.50 times by 2, that's $407. Then if we retain that $68 administration part of it, then that would mean that the expense would go from $275 to $475. So when we charge the members account, we just charge it for one flat fee. It goes on their account, and then that covers the recording and also the removal of the lien once the account is paid in full. So on the board memo that I sent out, and which is also on the website as an addendum, so what used to be $275 so basically what this is proposing is to increase that to $475, which is literally all that's doing is just increasing it by the increase in the recording costs of the county will be charging us to file the lien and then to remove the lien as well.
Makes sense. Well, I guess I'll start off with a motion and then we can have discussion. I move the board of directors approve the increase of lien fees on Sun Valley's fines and fee schedule from $275 to $475 to account for the county's increase in their recording costs.
Second.
Does anybody have any questions or discussion on that? Sam?
have we, I was reading, it says we haven't been doing any liens because things had just cleared up with the state. Are we going to put a little lead time on that so that we can put a notice on the website so that anybody that may be in that situation won't get surprised? Or, I mean, or any kind of lead time, or are we just looking at just doing it
Actually,
fast as we can?
I can answer that question. So basically, the governor had a proclamation out there because of the pandemic, which prohibited us from charging late fees and interest for past due accounts. And then that proclamation, then he would extend it through subsequent proclamations. So as of July 24th, 2021, that original proclamation was rescinded. So at that point, then we could start charging late fees and interest. Now, what we did is we advertised this on the website and also on the views. We put an article in there. But so at basically in July, at the end of July, we could have charged late fees, but then we gave the membership notice that basically we gave them 2 months grace. So we still did not charge late fees for August or for September. We started charging late fees for the month of October if they were late as of the end of October. So, and we also talked about that, like that process in the views and also online. So yeah, we did give a notice about this.
And
Actually,
Joel, so any members that were late, you guys also send notifications, right? Via
that's right, yes.
mail, right?
Yes, so when they become 30 days late, then we basically send out kind of like a courtesy letter. Hey, you're late. And then a person's account doesn't really become delinquent until 60 days past due. So meaning at that point, then they're like formally delinquent in the system. And then, so at this point, like Angie, she'll send out letters, the 60-day late letters, and that's when she's talking about the lien and the lien fee. And then properties aren't liened until they become 90 days past due. So that's when they become eligible to have a lien placed on their account. So even though the way that we're kind of doing it right now is, even if someone was late, because they weren't paying during the pandemic, we're kind of still somewhat starting the clock in terms of now the letters that will go out right now will be 60 days past due. And then next month will be, that's when the lien kind of notice will really start to kick in at that point.
All right. Any other questions? Discussion?
And so basically, Joel, you're just trying to increase the fees to match the county's fees so that
That's right. Yeah.
Sudden Valley is not
Yeah.
bearing any expenses for placing liens on properties for our late paying members.
Yeah, that's right. So at this point, all we're doing is just, like Kim said, just increasing the lien fee, just only to cover our additional costs to the county. We're not looking to make any more money off of this. It's just to cover the county's increase in their fees.
Anyone else? All right, well, hearing none, the motion on the table was for the board of directors to improve the increase of the lien fees in the Sudden Valley Communities Association's fines and fee schedules from $275 to $475, which will cover the county's increase in recording fees. We'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. All right, thank you, Joel. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joel.
Thanks, Joel.
All right, so moving on to the next item, do we have a motion to move into closed session?
Motion to move into closed session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'll see everyone over there.
I keep clicking the wrong links. Oh my God. I went back into closed session.
Just waiting on timing.
You know, there should be, but I've tried to save those in my calendar to make it easier, but I don't know. Outlook is so wonky. It's really difficult.
I'm not a fan of Outlook.
Uh-uh.
Outlook, the actual program of Outlook is much better than this web-based platform that we use. I like Outlook a lot with my work, but we have like the physical program on the computer.
Right.
I figure she's probably trying to find it.
Oh, we're waiting for timing.
Yeah, let's see. I'm gonna read.
Y'all could pin these, things at the top of your email so it stays there because the links stay the same, right? Both close and open session. So if you pin it, then it stays at the top of your email and you never have to look for it.
No open session does. I'm not sure about close though or not.
Yeah, closed sessions at least change between meetings. Open
They do.
sessions. Always the same.
Okay. Thanks, John. The voice from the sky.
We need to get this done if we're at that point, hearing voices.
Oh, we're hearing voices and no person.
I sent.
Voice.
I just sent her I resent it, and she's probably now wondering what the heck. Why do I have this thing? I'm probably making it worse. I didn't put a note on there when I forwarded the email. Ugh. Dang it. Yeah, we really should start using Teams, because then if even now, right? It could.
There she is.
Okay.
Yes, she is.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
I thought we lost you.
She came back with glasses, a whole nother look.
Well, because my computer wasn't working, I kept trying to join the meeting and I was the only one there. I had to keep my phone. Why am I the only one?
See, I am so glad that someone else has those issues.
I thought you guys that didn't like me anymore or something.
We gave you the wrong link. You're like, we're gonna have our meet over there and we're gonna meet over here.
No,
Oh, it's kind of rude.
and you'll see that I resent you the link because I thought you were just looking for it. So,
It's
all
just
right.
working. Okay. Anyway,
It's late. It's
we'll move on.
3 hours and 15 minutes, people.
Yep. All right. Do we have a motion to move back into open session?
Motion to move back into open session.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. That's unanimous. The board is going to take one action as a result of closed session. I move that the board of directors approve the executive committee to negotiate and execute a contract with the board and management team's preferred GM candidate.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. That passes unanimously. Just make a quick statement. We do realize that the community would like us to announce the candidate's name. But at this time, until a contract is actually executed, we would prefer to, or we do not feel comfortable announcing the candidate's name. We do hope to have an executed contract prior to the beginning of the new year. And so we do expect to be announcing the new general manager as soon as possible.
Yay.
All right. Okay, moving on the agenda, we will move to property owner comments before we adjourn.
Yeah, we've still got a couple people with us here. So if either of you would like to jump in for property owners comments, just use raise hand in Zoom and I'll bring you to the meeting. Also, Sonia, if you want to talk about teams, we can do that at some point. But I did have some discussions today with Larson Gross about that.
Oh, awesome. Okay, thank you.
All right, not seeing anyone that wants to join us tonight,
Yeah.
so we will move to adjourn.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Yay.
everybody.
All right,
Good
thank
night.
you.
Bye.
Thanks for
Bye,
sticking it
everyone.
out with
Thanks.
us, John.
No
Yeah.
problem. Have a good night, everybody.
Happy holidays,
Hi,
everyone.
John.
Yep, everyone have a happy holidays.
Holidays.